I think we have a great shot at parenthood. And honestly, I don't have any mixed emotions. I think that everything's going to go just fine with the people that we have in our lives and the ones who are there for us. And there's a lot of love in our circle. So I'm fully confident that everything's going to go.
with a
Yeah,
little bit
that's
of
where I came
splash
with
on the
that.
side or something.
I don't want to get into that at all. I don't want to get into that at all.
Cross
Cubic,
into the
ask
side.
a question.
We've lived and we've learned and we've had conversations and we adapt and we overcome.
Was that part of the PR guidelines? The kitty?
I've
No. Okay.
I've got nothing. I've got and this is honestly, I've got nothing to do with her PR team. That is
Is it
all
true that
her.
she's spending $13,000 a month on her PR team?
That is not true.
Hmm.
However, Gypsy's financials are her own business. I don't ask. She doesn't tell.
Hi friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. Gypsy-Rose Blanchard's parole is a big question and topic of discussion over on the TikTok and all over the internet because she was recently found to have communicated with inmates, which is a violation of her parole. Technical violations don't necessarily land someone back in prison, but Gypsy has been trying to do a lot to try to dispel rumors that everything is fine. So much so that she wants to go on her private Twitter to refute posts that I've made of screenshots and things that she's said to me and claim that these are false. She actually said that the conversations that I'm posting are all false. Gypsy is a pathological liar, and she also wants to protect herself and pretend like she's not doing what she's doing, but she is. So Gypsy has parole stipulations. She and I talked about these stipulations at length, many times, about her behavior on social media and what she can and cannot do. And I shared a screenshot yesterday of Gypsy letting me know that parole had her by the balls. Okay? She told me this on Instagram, but what is clear is they are bigger because I have restrictions that prevent me from defending myself. My parole has me by the balls. I wish I could go live and just talk about how they lie, but I can't. And I said it wouldn't help her change anything too. And she said, probably not. I also shared a screenshot of her talking about her pregnancy and her choices and making bad choices. And the conversation actually took place on May 26th, which I think was like a day after she told me that she was pregnant. This is what I shared. And I said, no, I'm not. And even though I understand that I made poor choices in life, like marrying Ryan only to get divorced because I'm in love with Ken, or not using protection and now I'm pregnant, even though it's a blessing and I'm happy, I know I could have done things differently, but that's my choices to make, you know. And I said, and you have to make choices, something you didn't get to do before. And she said, true, I can only try and think before I act going forward. Thinking before she acts is not always something she does well. It's honestly funny because I don't even remember her telling me this, and I might have actually been like, it was late. I think it was like 11 o'clock, maybe 11:30 when we were texting at night. And I may not have even been paying attention to what she was saying because I don't remember her telling me that she left Ryan for Ken in May, but I guess she did. And I guess that's not something that she wants to the public to know, because one of my followers actually follows her over on Twitter, and someone posted a copy of my Instagram, and it says, what I don't get is she talks so much shit about Gypsy, but Gypsy still talks to her knowing she tells her her business. I don't understand. And then Gypsy responded saying that conversation, like many others, is false. So what I had to do is make a screen recording of the conversation just to show and that this conversation really did happen, that it really was in May, that it really was something that was real. And At this point, I don't have any reason to lie, and I'm sharing and being truthful about everything because I want people to understand what this family is doing, what Gypsy is doing, how she's conning the public still, how they're involved in some kind of money laundering, embezzlement, in my opinion, related to her payments for all of these shows, how she's profiting what she did to her mom. And I put the screen recording out, and interestingly, she has responded to my posts by deciding to go private on Instagram. And I find this interesting because the last time that I made a public post kind of denouncing her and exposing the stuff that I knew about her and the trust money and the funds and all of it, she made a post on her Twitter saying that a private Instagram was coming soon because she didn't want the hate. So she changed it to Gypsy-Rose.insta. So much like she was before, when she gets caught, she goes private, she goes offline, and she tries to act like there's nothing to see here. Oddly, at the same time this afternoon, she posted that there was no arrest of any kind, which was strange because I haven't paid attention too much to what's going on TikTok or even on Twitter about Gypsy, but I don't know that I recall anyone saying she was arrested. So I also think it's weird that she hashtags her own name from her own account. I mean, it's just strange, but what do I know? She apparently wants everyone to see what she's saying on her Twitter, even though her Twitter isn't her name. You would think she wouldn't need to hashtag her name. And her Twitter is private, so only people that follow her can actually see this. And the hashtag won't show up publicly for anyone that's behind not following her. It's private, so the tweet won't show. So if she wants to get this out, she's doing this behind a private account. So I was like, there is some serious damage control going on here. She's very carefully panicking about what's happening. And Nina, the beauty influencer, she's over on TikTok. And interestingly, back in May, Gypsy told me that she was in therapy trying to deal with Nina because Nina was her biggest bully. Now, I don't know much about Nina, but I will say that Nina is a beauty person. So she does makeup and she talks about a lot of things. She promotes products. I used to think she was terrible because of Gypsy. Now I kind of just view Nina as someone that she shares what she hears from other people. She discusses her thoughts. She does some of her own research when she's looking into things. People reach out to her and give them her insight about what's going on in the family. And she's very clear in her posts that what she is sharing is alleged. She never claims anything as fact. And she, like many people that do commentary, share what she suspects or her assumptions, which is what anyone can do. Anyone that can do talking about a public figure. And so she was calling Nina her biggest bully, which I thought was so weird. Like, girl, you have real problems in your life when you are so worried and focused about Fancy Maselli and Nina being your biggest bullies. Because these two women, all they're doing is sharing what they hear and what they know. And that's not being a bully. But I digress. So she's very fixated on what people say about her, and she really wants to view herself as like a good person. She doesn't like it that people think of her badly. And I think it's because, she wants to believe that she didn't do what she did and that she isn't defined by what she did. And unfortunately, in this society, if you have the kind of charge that she does, that's not something that's easy to overcome. It's very difficult for people that have the charge that she has as the mastermind for people to forget. Yes, she can go off into society and have a life and do what she needs to do, but you almost become like a pariah when you have a charge like that, especially the severity of what she did to her mom and the brutality of it. So, if she would have been smart, and I tried to tell the family this ahead of time, that she should just go away privately and sink away into society and just hide, because the bulk of the public will never accept her, ever, no matter what she does. Because some crimes are so egregious and so despicable that society as a whole doesn't give people a second chance for them. I'm just sharing the truth of what society does. Some people believe in second chances. Some people believe in the false narrative that she promotes about herself, but most people don't. And the wave of public support for her has shifted. So Nina, who is her quote unquote biggest bully, did a video a couple days ago where she was looking at the records requests for Gypsy's case. And a request was made via CaseNet for copies of something from her court case, uncertified. They were making a request. There wasn't a document that was attached, so there's no idea what they were seeking and why they were seeking it. The name for the request was a woman named Amanda Moore. Incidentally, there's a woman named Amanda Moore who works as a probation and parole officer in Springfield, which would be the office that has final say on Gypsy. So Nina was speculating that perhaps someone from parole was seeking to get records from her case for some reason. I spoke to someone that was incarcerated in Chillicothe with Gypsy, and I asked them, is it common for a parole officer to get records from a case? And they said it depends, but it does happen, especially if someone from parole is looking for notes from the parole board, wants to see parole stipulations, is looking for information about her parole board meeting, what changes there might be to the parole review if they are looking for copies of notes put in by parole to the court. And not all records are public, but a parole officer could make that request. So Amanda Moore could theoretically be the parole officer that's requesting this. But I want to be clear, Amanda Moore could also just be some lady that lives in Texas that wants to see copies of Gypsy's case. CNN has made requests. NBC News has made requests. HBO has made requests. So it could be parole, but it could not be parole. But regardless of that, that has made her nervous, Gypsy, because now she's like, no, there's no arrest. No, none of that happened. No, I'm not in trouble with parole. No, I'm not on house arrest. No, 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 no. Right? I always feel like when your bark is louder than it needs to be, like when you start barking about something and you're trying to say it didn't happen, and you are overly defending yourself, sometimes that makes it look like you're guilty, even if you're not. I actually tried to explain this to them so many times, that if you do defend yourself, it can go one of two ways. It can either look like the people that already believe you will believe you no matter what, and the people that hate you are going to hate you no matter what, or the people that don't support the profiting off of a schmurder and a schmurderer becoming a celebrity are going to dislike her no matter what she does and no matter what she says. She calls them haters, but I would just call them concerned citizens. And I tried to explain to her, like, it doesn't matter. Nothing you say or do is going to move the needle for the people that don't like you. It won't. It's a losing battle. It's worthless. I'm such a small public figure compared to her, and I have had to deal with these kinds of issues of my own. And for the most part, I don't respond. Sometimes I will, just if I see something that's like really blatantly false, but I don't go on and on and on about something, because a lot of times when you do, it just makes you look guilty. And I know that that's been how I've been portrayed before. And so I thought she might consider that advice, but you have to do she's going to do what she's going to do. And if things were going as good as they were, and if Gypsy was as happy as she claims, she wouldn't have time to be online to address all of this negativity. She would be focusing on what matters in her life, which is taking care of her health, taking care of her mental health, going to therapy, perhaps getting into school, going to college to get a career. I mean, Gypsy was supposed to go to college while she was incarcerated, but she never did. She at one point was enrolled at like Ashland. I don't know what that school is. I don't know where this is. And she was going to get a bachelor's degree in like advocacy and public speaking. But then she got accepted and then didn't go forward with it due to funding. She couldn't afford it. There wasn't money. I don't know how it works with with inmates and how education is and what they have to pay. But she said due to funding, she couldn't enroll. So this would actually be a really good time for her to get into school, to do something so that she has skills, or to be productive in society, maybe volunteer, or find a way to give back to the organizations that she defrauded, the ones that like Make-A-Wish and Angel Flights and those. But instead, she's spending her time consumed with the negative comments, mostly because, in my opinion, she's trying to get away from the truth. And she's trying to change the narrative of what the truth is. And she doesn't want the public to believe that people have caught on to her. I was watching a video of Nina, and whoever Nina is talking to in the family, she's posted like 4 parts on her TikTok. I will say a lot of what she's saying about Christy is accurate. In a recent one, the person was telling her that Christy was feeling like guilty about enabling her and wondering if she was enabling her. And I know that this is something that a lot of people have talked to Christy about. It was something I talked to Christy about. It was something Christy admitted to doing, being afraid to say no, being afraid to get on her bad side, because we all know what happens when someone gets on her bad side. Her mom ended up unalive. And I also remember, so that was one thing, was that Nina's video set was talking about. And then another thing had to do with the genetics and finding out about the microdeletion. Christy claims that she found out about the microdeletion in January, but I know that they knew she had a chromosomal disorder before that. What I don't think they knew or understood were how much of what Dee Dee did or had done for Gypsy, like the medical procedures and like the ear tubes and the eye surgeries and the feeding tube, was actually a product of her microdeletion. Eye issues, ear infections, failure to thrive, feeding issues. So the person was saying that that was a game changer for Christy. I was actually on the phone with Christy the day that she was looking at it, and we were on the phone with her and another person for like 2 or 3 hours going over it and talking about the different symptoms of the microdeletion. And I won't say that I don't recall Christy ever saying to me that it was a game changer. The way that Christy positioned it was, well, Dee Dee must have known this, and then she took it and ran with it. That's how she phrased it back then. The problem with Christy's assumption was that they didn't know about the microdeletion until 2011, and all of the surgeries that Gypsy had leading up to it and finding out what she had were done before that. So there would be no way for Dee Dee to have known prior to 2011 that Gypsy had this specific microdeletion, and then all these specific issues were being cared for were a product of it. So Dee Dee really couldn't have taken it and ran with it because she didn't know yet. She didn't know until 2011. And once they found out about what she had, and she was older and she was an adult and she didn't need as much care as she did before, and she had grown out of some of the issues, which does happen. Like the feeding issues can improve as you get older, and the issues with ear infections can get better as an adult, and her eye issues will never change. But Christy's assumption back then was like, well, Dee Dee just took it and ran with it. Now, I do suspect that maybe Christy, in the back of her mind, is starting to suspect that maybe there is more to the story, and maybe Gypsy did need these surgeries. I think if Christy was going to admit any of this, she would have to be drunk or on drugs, because she's very careful about what she says when she's sober, and she tries not to stay away from the narrative. And like, she's very careful because she's very obsessed with her image, just like Gypsy. And Nina's message did say that she was drunk when she was talking about this, so I could believe it. I could believe that Christy is onto it and knows, and she knows that she's been snowed. But at the same time, Christy's also as much a part of the problem as Gypsy, because she's the one that's dictating what Gypsy does and says, and she's the one that's dictating all of these contracts. She's the one that sought out Melissa Moore, who got her hooked up with Lifetime. She's the one that's buddy-buddy with Melissa Moore. She's the one that Melissa Moore told her to go get her bag. Melissa Moore's dad is the happy face killer. So the daughter of a serial murderer is who's basically leading the way for Gypsy to get her bag. So Melissa makes money off the trauma of her dad's victims, and Gypsy is making money off the trauma of what she did to her mom and the trauma of her mom's family and their loss. It's actually gross if you think about it. So does this mean that Gypsy is going to be violated and put back in prison? I spoke again to that same inmate, and they said it's going to take a lot for her to be violated. Like, she's not going to go back to prison before they try other strategies with her. Other strategies could include that she has to check in with her PO every day, or that she can only stay at her parents' house and not at Ken's, or they could put her on an ankle monitor, but she's not on one. They could have her go into a treatment facility. They could put her into a halfway house before they put her back in prison. But if she continues to just continue to break after they've set those new strategies in, then she could go back to prison, but she would never go back to Chillicothe because she's pregnant. That's the way that the inmate said. There's another like prison that's, I think, a step down that they go to. It's not as like, it's a lower security prison, and it has other resources for medical than Chillicothe does. No matter what, Gypsy would never go back to Chillicothe, according to this inmate. And then if she catches new charges, then of course she would be violated. But on technical violations, it would take a lot for her to be revoked. Like even a dirty UA might not automatically put her back in prison. That could just put her into treatment. Or getting caught drinking might put her into treatment, or put her into outpatient therapy or something. But the fact that she's like, there's no arrest of any kind, it just makes me feel like that's something that's always on the top of her mind. And as she said, parole has her by the balls. And so what does parole have her by the balls for? She can't defend herself, and yet she constantly defends herself. And so what does she do? She uses her best friend, Bree, to harass people and to make their lives miserable and create troll accounts. And she'll send her followers to attack people, attack anyone that says the truth. And recently, like, I've been sharing a lot on TikTok, but when I post about it on my Instagram, a lot of her followers come follow me, and they're like leaving nasty comments to me telling me I'm obsessed and that I have some sort of vendetta and that I'm doing a smear campaign against her. Now, I recognize that it's shocking to some people that I've changed my tune and changed directions of what I was thinking, but I felt like if I didn't say something and I just swept it under the rug and just went along and never opened my mouth about her again, that I would be doing a disservice to those people that I told that, hey, you should trust Gypsy. You should follow her and support her. I'd spent so many years telling people to support her that I felt like I have to now tell people, this is what's actually happening behind the scenes. This is why I don't support it anymore. And you all should be very leery of what she says and does, because they're scamming you. They're conning you. They're lying. And they only care about money. And I truly believe there are crimes being committed. That's my opinion. If anything happens from that, I don't know. Someone sent me an email a couple days ago and claimed the FBI is investigating them. Again, I have no idea. The FBI never announces investigations anyway. But regardless, she's worried. She's worried about the truth, and now she's going private. There could be a threat of arrest at some point. We never know. But Gypsy is being Gypsy, and I want to be clear, like, her whole life she spent being a criminal, and then she went to prison and became a better criminal, that she's not going to stop being a criminal. She's not going to stop being a scam artist. She's not going to stop being a fraudster. She's not going to stop being a con artist. That's all she knows how to do, and it's all she wants to do. Gypsy doesn't want to change. And so it's not a matter to me of if she's going to go back to prison, but it's when and for what. I just hope it's not for schmurder. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Bye, everyone.